That lady with the big smile over there is our fantastic Mary. I just interviewed her sister, Alan. I said, Alan, you are a star because you're in university studying a really difficult subject, and Mary is every bit as big a star. You know, again, in university, studying a really hard field. A lot of technical stuff, a lot of math, I think. You have to do a lot of math, don't you?
Yes, we do.
Percentages of all the fertilizers and nitrogen and oh my gosh, okay. So we are so proud of her. There's actually a song, Proud Mary, right? Okay, so why don't you just introduce yourself a little bit, and then I'll ask you some questions about your school.
My name is Nakaji Mary. I studied from Uganda Christian University, Mukono. I'm in my second year, second semester.
And how old are you?
I'm 21.
21, okay. All right. And you're studying agricultural science. That's what it's called? Okay. And eventually, or maybe now, you have to choose between, what do you call it, plant husbandry and animal husbandry? Yes, right. But up to now, you've been learning a little bit about both.
Yes, Dad.
Right? Because, of course, they go back and forth. The animals eat the plants. The animals create the fertilizer for the plants. So you can't just study one without the other, I don't think.
Yes,
All right.
Dad, right.
So tell us a little bit about what you were learning. And you were just explaining to me what happens when a field is fallow for a year. Can you tell the people at home? I thought that was really interesting.
Well, following is the period where you leave the land to rest, or it's a period to leave the land to rest after using it. So in following, we leave the land to rest after using it, like for a season or for 2 seasons, and it depends on how often you've been using the land. And okay, following depends on how often you've been using the land. If you rarely use the land, you can leave it for a shorter period, like 4 months to 6 months. And if you've been using the land often and frequently, you can leave it to rest for a long period, like 1 year. You can leave it for 1.5 years. So, and when you leave the land, or when you do following of the land, you're increasing on the fertility of the soil. You're improving on the compaction of the soil.
So how does that happen? You were explaining, because the grass grows,
Yes.
and leaves fall out of trees and things like that. How does that work?
So how it works, when you leave the land to fallow, of course you're expecting trees to grow. You're expecting grass to grow, and you're expecting different living organisms to be in the soil inside. So what happens and how following helps to improve on soil fertility is that when the grass grows, of course there is a period what we call drying off of leaves. So when the leaves dry off from the tree, they are going to fall off. When they fall down, of course they are going to dry and they will become dry matter. When they become dry matter, they are going to be broken down into small particles by living organisms. And when they are broken down, those living organisms are going to mix them into the soil, and they are going to make them as fertilizer. They are broken down into small particles, and after being broken down, they are going to be fixed into the soil, because when they are broken down, so they are no longer in big particles, like it's no longer a leaf. So it's going to be mixed into the soil, and it will improve on the soil fertility. Still, even the roots of the trees, of the grass, they combine the soil. Like, remember, when you overuse the soil, you're breaking down the soil particles. So when they are broken down and you do following, the roots of the trees, they are going to compile the soils together, and then they are going to form what we call soil compaction. Not compacting it in a hard way, but then bringing it together, like compiling it for the proper growth of crops, and then for improving of the soil fertility, and then the soil structure. Like it brings the loam soil, or what we call the dark soils, on the top layer, and it will what? And the black soil or the loam soils, they help in the proper growth of the soils. So remember, when they mix, when the roots compile the soil, they're improving on the soil structure. So they break down the bigger particles.
Yeah.
So when they break down the bigger particles, so when you plant, or after following, when you plant in that land, it's going to be easier for the crops to penetrate, the roots of the crops to penetrate into the soil. And of course, that will be that like the crop will grow very faster because the soils are soft. So the roots will easily penetrate into the soil to bring out the water. Remember, the roots bring like the roots helps in the water, like how can is it transporting water from underground to the crop. So when the soils are soft and they have good compaction, so it will help the roots to easily penetrate into the soils and bring out the water that will help the plants to grow fast. And it will also help in the nitrogen fixation. That's if you leave remember, when you leave the land to fallow, so you're improving on still the living organisms. So it also helps in the nitrogen fixation.
Okay, great. Now your family has property, and
Yes.
Kenny has been sort of the lead person on making decisions, I think.
Yes.
I know he's out there doing a lot of work, that's for sure. Do you give him advice?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do help him out.
Does he take your advice?
Yeah, he does.
So-
That's if he really feels it will work for him. He
So
does.
what's a recent piece of advice you gave to Kenny?
The reason is because apparently we haven't yet because he grew maize.
Yeah, grow maize. Yeah.
So we are still waiting until maize is dried.
Okay.
So when it's dry, so that's when he will use because this period, like this season, he has planted a lot of maize. So he'll leave the part that he has been using frequently for maize to rest, and then he'll use the new parts that he cleared for the last season.
Okay, great. Well, that's a fascinating career. I look forward to seeing you really what we would call flourishing in that career. But for fun side, we came out to Jinja yesterday,
Yes.
and I hope you've been having a good time.
Yeah, extremely.
Okay, so yesterday we arrived, and first thing we did was jump in the water, right?
Yes.
So tell us about, had you ever been swimming before?
Well, I think I've not really like swimming, like reusing the swimming teeth, but I've ever.
Okay, so this was the first time you had a swimming lesson,
Yes.
and you had the floater on,
Yes.
right? So tell us about that.
Wow, it's so interesting that I learned a lot how to swim. Okay, for all along I've been yearning to know how to swim, like I can really swim, not to just play in water maybe. But yesterday it was extremely good. At first I was shivering even to step in the water. I was like, goodness, once I just, is it called floating? Not floating, is it called, how is it called? Well, I think I
Well, the
remember.
floater makes you rise to the surface.
No, it's like drowning, sorry.
Oh, okay, drowning.
Yeah,
No, that's
so yesterday it was,
the whole object is to not drown.
yeah, it's,
Okay.
and so it was so scary at first, but when, like with time, I had to just catch up. I first used,
Now we had two good instructors.
yes,
We had Johnny and
and Edwin.
Edwin. Okay,
It's Edwin, sorry, not Edwin.
Edwin.
So at first I had to use a life jacket, but with time, so at least I'm used and I'm somewhere I can swim without a life jacket.
Okay,
Yeah, which is so interesting.
but Johnny and Edwin were like holding you up,
Yeah,
right?
they had to help out because I didn't know how to do it. So they had to
Yeah.
help out to help me do it.
Again, just for the audience at home, it's just a physiological fact that black people have more dense bones and muscles than white
Yeah.
people do, which means that they're great at playing football, but the saying is, or they can play basketball, but they can't swim, because they do sink.
Yeah,
They sink in a way that white
You're
people
right.
don't sink. I can tell you that by trying to keep Joy and Betty from falling down. When I was trying to teach them, and that's when I realized I needed a real teacher, because I couldn't tell them what they were doing. But Betty in particular is just, she was like a little stone. She just kept going down, 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 down. Okay, but so it got to the point where, do you think maybe we'll have some races today?
It's okay, Dad. That'll be more interesting.
Yeah, your sister wants to race you.
Yeah, it's okay. That'll be more interesting.
Okay, so then we had lunch here, and then we went out on a boat ride.
Boat riding.
Well, how was the boat ride?
Wow, it was extremely good. Working on the water, and you're seeing different birds, we're seeing different grass that is growing, we're seeing different type of monkeys, as in different people just enjoying being on the source of the Nile. It was extremely good. Really had a good fun. At first we're walking from the river, so we had to go to the lake, so it was extremely so good.
So it's interesting, when we're in the lake, you're just floating.
Yeah.
And then maybe 200 meters away, and it looks the same, except if your boat's there, you're going to go right down to the dam.
Yeah,
Right? It's really quite remarkable. The difference of a couple of hundred meters there is really interesting. And then we had a really crazy meal last night. We went to this Indian restaurant, and yesterday was Boxing Day.
Yes, it was.
So big holiday. Everything's packed. The swimming pool's packed. The place where the boats are is packed, and the restaurant was packed. And so I guess because of that, it took them like an hour to get our food out. And then when it came out, we'd forgotten what we'd ordered. And they put all these dishes in front of them, and some were too hot and some were too strange. And how'd you find all that?
Well, actually, when we went to the Indian hotel, I think I waited a lot, and at times I felt like I have no more appetite of eating. Because by the time food reached, I was off, as in I didn't want to eat anything. But it's so interesting that there were some meals that were so nice, regardless that they had a lot of chili, and I'm not a fan, so I was left out a bit. At least I was limited to what I ate because it had a lot of chili, and I don't like a lot of chili. So whatever that I ate, it was so limited, but the food was so spiced and it was so good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you left with a little packet of food, didn't you? A little box of food?
I did.
Okay. You'll have that for dinner tonight?
Not really. I don't think that I can eat it. Maybe I'll give it to someone else,
Okay.
like for my
All right.
people, but not really.
Okay. Well, I just want to say again what a delight it's been to have Mary more to ourselves than we normally get to see her. And it's been a lot of fun for us. So if you want to say hello to Papa Gary or people in America.
Okay, to everyone who in America, Papa Gary, and whoever that knows me, I wish them a prosperous new year of joy, of love. I love them.
Okay. So this is Mary part 2. We had a technical problem there, folks, and didn't quite get to the end of the interview, and so we've got Mary one more time. Now we're at we're back in Zziba, not at the Nile porch, but where we were leading up to is the sort of the finale, which is to ask if she wants to say hi to Papa Gary or anyone else in America, and just say any message you have.
Okay, to Papa Gary and everyone in America, I send my lovely greetings. I love them all, and everyone thank them for the support, for the love, for the care, and for making our future so bright. Because if it wasn't their support, we wouldn't have reached this far. Because they're at the university, some are done graduating, and some are yet to be at the university, and we are so proud of them. And we really pray to God that God can bless them, can bless the hands of their hands, can bless their families, and they live longer and healthy.
Okay, great. So Christmas is past, but you can say Happy New Year to everybody.
Yeah, Happy New Year to everyone. Love them all.
Okay, thank you, dear.